We think that the confidence is going to come from us achieving that next milestone or accolade or accomplishment. But so often we find ourselves achieving the milestone, achieving the accolade, and still not feeling confident. If we want to develop real, lasting, genuine confidence, there is deeper internal work to be done to unlock our ability to see and experience our own accomplishments and greatness, and to feel the genuine confidence that flows when that finally happens.
Welcome to The Art of Speaking Up, a podcast that helps professional women access the limitless potential that lies within them. I'm your host, Jessica Guzik, and my mission is to help you find that spark inside you that has the power to transform your career in ways you may not have thought possible. I'm so excited that you're here. And now, on to the show.
Welcome to the Art of Speaking Up podcast. Today, we are talking about possibly my favorite topic ever, which is the topic of self-confidence. This episode is for you if you are wanting to feel more confident in your bones, but it feels like even though you're putting in the effort, the confidence isn't sticking. It kind of feels like you're on an endless quest, like maybe a little bit of a treadmill or a hamster wheel, trying to self-improve, trying to feel more strong and capable inside, but you're not quite getting to the point that you want to be. If that is your experience, this episode is for you. Today, I am talking about a mindset obstacle that has been coming up over and over and over and over in my client work just so much. And I knew I had to talk about it on the show because it's going to help you get unstuck when it comes to building genuine confidence. So the mindset obstacle that I'm going to be talking about today is something that I call success rejection. And this is probably not a phrase that you have heard before. It is an idea that I have come up with as I've worked with well over 100 women to help them build confidence. In today's episode, I'm going to tell you what success rejection is. I'm going to talk about how you know if it's something that you are experiencing. And most importantly, I'm going to give you some really tactical tips on how to stop doing it so that you can feel more confident inside. And I'm sure that you've already thought about this, and I'm sure that this isn't news to you, but there is such a strong link and a strong relationship between the internal confidence that you feel and the external behaviors that you are able to adopt at work. Typically, as your internal confidence grows, it shows up on the outside in the form of you speaking up more, being bolder, taking up more space. And then those behaviors create a whole other layer of second order results, which is that the speaking up and the taking up space helps you develop a strong reputation and be more impactful in your role and ultimately move into leadership faster. And it truly starts with that internal layer. It is that internal confidence that helps you show up big, and it is showing up big that helps propel your career forward. And we are talking about the internal most layer of that process, the self-confidence. Now, the idea of success rejection, which is what I'm going to be talking about in this episode, is something that gets in the way of confidence. It's a mindset blocker or a mental obstacle that once you start to unwind it and push past it, your confidence tends to grow. So at its core, success rejection means that there is no place in your mind to house and hold your own successes and accomplishments. So if you achieve a success, it's as if your mind rejects it. There is no room for this success. It's kind of like, I think about getting rejected from, maybe applying to schools. You get rejected from your school application. There is no room in the class of that school for you. Similarly, with success rejection, there is no room in our minds to house our positive qualities and our accomplishments. So even if we do achieve something, mentally, we reject it. We spit it out. We throw it away. It doesn't get to stay and land within us. Now, what I want to do is I want to talk through the different categories of successes that you will likely mentally, quote unquote, reject if you experience success rejection. And then I'm also going to talk about the different ways in which we reject our own success, because it can look a lot of different ways. And then most importantly, I'm going to talk about what you can do to break this pattern so that you can actually take in and experience your own wins, your own accomplishments, your own successes, and your own goodness. Because as I'm going to be talking about towards the end of today's episode, one of the prerequisites to developing lasting, genuine, authentic, sustainable confidence is that we have to be able to mentally take in our own accomplishments, our own goodness, our own achievements. If we can't take them in, it is impossible to feel confident, because everything good about ourselves and everything that we've ever done, it's as if it never happened and it doesn't exist, right? So if mentally it's as if we've never achieved anything good and there's nothing good about us and we've never accomplished anything, like if that's what we're experiencing mentally, no matter how much we accomplish, how the heck are we ever going to feel more confident? So we have to learn to unwind this pattern. But then once we do, we start to feel more at peace with ourselves, more adoring of ourselves, more confident, more proud of what we've done. So this can be hard work. Our minds can be really stubborn, but it's work worth doing. Okay. So first, with success rejection, I want to talk about the different types of successes your mind might reject. And I really want you to think about it as like your mind is literally spitting it out, and there's no place in your psyche for those successes to land and stay. So some examples of different kinds of successes that you might reject are, number one, past accomplishments. So this includes things like promotions, getting a big project over the line, achieving a career milestone. With success rejection, even if you accomplish a lot of things in the past, they're not going to stick in your mind. Another category of successes that will not be sticking in your mind if you experience success rejection are skills that you have accumulated gradually over time through the day-to-day, month-to-month, year-to-year experience of just showing up in your role. As you move through your professional journey, you gain more skills. And a lot of the skills you gain aren't obvious skills. Like it's not like you go through a training and then all of a sudden you have more skills. A lot of the skills you gain in your job, you gain them slowly, gradually over time through the accumulation of experiences. And all of a sudden, you've accumulated enough experiences that you have deeper knowledge and deeper abilities that maybe you didn't have at the beginning of your career. Now, with success rejection, your mind will reject those skills that you have been accumulating over time. It won't feel like you are accumulating any skills at all. Another category of successes that will be really difficult for your mind to conceptualize and to accept and hold if you experience success rejection are positive character traits. This includes things like being empathetic, being determined, being resourceful. If you experience success rejection, it will be really hard for you to accept and see that you possess positive character traits. And finally, the last category of successes that you won't really be able to perceive and be aware of if you experience success rejection is external feedback. So external feedback includes performance reviews, praise from your boss, positive accolades that you get day to day as you achieve milestones. If you experience success rejection, it will be really hard for you to take in that external feedback. So to summarize, there are a bunch of different ways you can be successful and create success. You can accomplish things, you can accumulate new skills, you can possess positive character traits, you can receive positive external feedback. If you experience success rejection, all of those wonderful, beautiful things will not be able to land within your psyche. It will be as if they don't exist. And this typically happens in one of two ways. Either you are just completely oblivious to that positive thing from the very beginning. This typically happens with things like positive character traits and skills that you accumulate over time. because they're not like in your face, obvious. So you simply like won't be aware of them. They just won't be within your awareness. They won't be something that you're thinking that you have or that you've done. But the other way it can show up is you might have an awareness of some of these wins and accomplishments. For example, if you get feedback from your boss that you're doing well, or you get a positive performance review, you will obviously be aware that you have done something good. But the reason I love the phrase success rejection is because even though you're aware of the good thing that you've done, you will mentally reject it. You will chew it up and spit it out. So even though, yes, theoretically, you're being told that you're doing well, or theoretically, you have accomplished a lot, theoretically, you have actually done a lot of great things in your career, your mind is going to reject those things and you're going to experience yourself as if those things never happened. So I just imagine like your mind like spitting them out, rejecting them. Now, typically, struggles with self-confidence and success rejection go hand in hand, and I'm sure you can start to imagine why that might be the case. So often when you are struggling to feel confident about yourself, you mentally engage in patterns of success rejection. Now, here's what's really important about this, and here's where a big part of the breakthrough around this really starts to take root within your heart and mind. What's so important to know is that a lot of people, when they're struggling with self-confidence, their first impulse on how to solve that problem is to go out and create more success. So their logic, their experience is, okay, I'm not feeling super confident. I want to feel more confident. If I achieve X, Y, and Z, I will feel more confident. If I get that degree, if I have that extra piece of knowledge, if I get that positive feedback, if I land that promotion, when that happens, I will feel confident. Now, I think that you can probably start to see the flaw in this plan when you think about success rejection. If I am not feeling confident, and if simultaneously I struggle to either be aware of or maintain a perception and awareness of my wins, my accomplishments, my strengths, if I struggle to do that, then me going out and achieving more wins and more successes isn't going to help me feel more confident. Because the same problem that's causing me to lack confidence in the first place, which is that my mind rejects my successes, it chews them up and spits them out, that same problem is going to get in the way of me building confidence in the future. If my mind is chewing up and spitting out my positive traits and my successes today, then when I achieve a win or an accolade or a success tomorrow in the future, my mind is going to do the same thing and I'm going to be back at square one. And this is a pattern that we get stuck in a lot, and it can feel really draining and it can feel really demoralizing and it can make you wonder, like, is something wrong with me? The pattern that we get stuck in is we're trying to achieve, we're trying to do more, and we're not experiencing the internal emotional shift that we hoped would come from our efforts. And what I want to offer in today's episode, and I feel so strongly about this, and I feel like this is so important. What I want to offer is that pursuing success and being ambitious is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I'm certainly not wanting to send a message that you should stop trying to create success in your career, because my work is for women who want to create success. But what I am suggesting is that in addition to you trying to create success, you also work to reverse your success rejection so that you have the capability and the capacity to be aware of and to perceive and take in the successes that you are achieving. I believe that the work of building confidence involves two important parallel processes. One in which we are reaching for that next thing and going for that next milestone, but there's a second process in parallel in which we are learning to mentally see the wins that come along with achieving those milestones. The second thing I want to share with you in today's episode, like the second big piece that I want to cover, is how to unwind success rejection. because I have a particular philosophy and an approach that I like to use both in my own life and when I'm supporting my clients. And I want to walk you through the 3 ingredients that will help you unwind success rejection so that you can be aware of your own successes. And so that then that awareness can help you build a lasting sense of self-confidence. In the second part of this episode, I'm going to go over that and walk you through exactly what that is. But first, a quick break to share an important update. So over the past few weeks, I have been hard at work behind the scenes developing a brand new free training. It is called Unstoppable Voice: 3 Simple Steps to Developing a Confident, Compelling Voice in the Room. In this video training, my goal is to give you a super inspirational push to stop playing small, to stop underestimating yourself, and to start using your voice super powerfully at work. I'm going to teach you my signature framework for developing a very confident, very compelling verbal communication style so that you can stand out and make a bigger impact in your role. To grab this free training, click the link in the show notes or head to jessguzik.coaching.com/free training. You are going to love the vibe of this training if you're in a headspace where you want to get more serious about growing your confidence and elevating your communication skills to the next level. I am so excited for you to experience everything that I am teaching in this video training. And once again, you can grab it by clicking the link in the show notes. Now, back to the episode. Okay, so what I've done in the episode so far is I've told you what success rejection is and how it gets in the way of building confidence. Now, I'm going to talk about how to tackle success rejection. And specifically, I'm going to walk you through my philosophy and what I am keeping in mind as a coach as I am working with my clients. Because my clients don't come to me necessarily being like, hey, Jess, can you help me tackle my success rejection? That's not an ask or request that I get. Most of my clients come with the goal of wanting to feel more confident, but I know that in parallel, we want to be breaking down any success rejection that they might be experiencing mentally. And so through the way that I work with them, whether it's in my one-on-one or in my group curriculum, but through the work that I do with my clients, I am taking steps to help them unwind that pattern because I know that that's such a key step in building the confidence. And the philosophy that I use and the process that I use with my clients that I have found to be extremely powerful is what I call the 3 S's. So we've got a lot of S's, the 3 S's of seeing your own success. So I'm going to tell you what the 3 S's are, and then I'm going to walk you through what each of them is. And I'm also going to share some of the pitfalls that go along with them, because let me just tell you that unwinding success rejection and learning to sit with our own greatness and our own successes can be really, really difficult. And I'm going to talk about some of those difficulties because I want to normalize it because I think it's something that doesn't get talked about enough that so many women experience. So the 3 S's are number 1, slow down, number 2, see, and number 3, sense. So I'm going to walk you through what each of these is, why it's so important, how it helps, and how you can make sure you are practicing it. So number 1, in order to reverse success rejection and learn to see and mentally retain your own successes, you have to slow down. You have to slow down and create space to observe and reflect. The reason that you need to do this is because your mind on its own is not going to suddenly reverse a very stubborn, long-held psychological pattern. So the only way that you can reverse a long-held psychological pattern is to slow down and create space to reflect on how you are thinking about yourself and how you are perceiving yourself so that you can notice any success rejection in action. It is only through slowing down to self-observe and notice that you then create an opportunity to see what you're doing and choose to practice something different. Now, there's lots of different ways that you can slow down. One thing that I love to do, this is something that I do in my group program, the Art of Speaking Up Academy, is I kick off every single group session with celebrations. And I really push my clients to come with celebrations of any size. And I don't just do this as a feel-good thing. This is not just a rah, like we're, sharing these to feel good, although we are, and it can feel really good. And there are often moments that just feel really wonderful and special when we get to hear each other's wins in that setting. But part of the reason that I'm doing it is for the first S, to slow down and to create space for self-reflection. And in that space, then, as my clients are sharing their wins with me, I can start to spot then some of the things that are keeping them in patterns of success rejection. And this brings me to the second S, which is to see, S-E-E. So the first S is slow down, and the second S is see, S-E-E. Now, in the slowing down, you want to practice seeing. You want to practice seeing the wins, the accolades, the positive character traits, the milestones. In that space you've created to slow down, you now have the opportunity to force yourself and your mind to see what it wouldn't have seen on its own without the space to do that. Now, what I will say, and what is so fascinating about this, is that even if you slow down and do step one and create the space and try to see your wins, it can still be very hard to do that, even if you're trying to do that. So the best way for me to explain this is through an example. Like I said, the way that I practice slow down and see in my group program is by creating space to celebrate and talk about successes and wins. And what I often notice very, very often is a client will come and share a win, but they will caveat the win. And they will say something like, well, this is like a really little thing, or I don't know if this counts, or, this wasn't like the super hard thing that I've been trying for. And when I hear them say that, I know and I can see that even though we're doing step one, slowing down, they're getting a little bit stuck in step two, see, because even though they're theoretically telling me about their success, telling me about the win they accomplished, they're having troubles seeing it as a win. They're not registering it as a win. They're seeing that there's something wrong with it. It's too small. It's not good enough. It's not the quote unquote right win. So this tells me that seeing is really, really hard for them, and that some of the growth and some of the work is in noticing that discounting and that caveat that they keep bringing in and asking themselves why they're doing that and whether it is really true that the win or success that they're sharing is too small or insignificant. Because so often when we experience that, it just feels like truth to us. And it really doesn't feel like we are discounting ourselves or devaluing our own successes. It just feels like, no, this really is a small thing. This really doesn't count. But what I find is that when we discount or devalue the quote unquote small things, we also tend to discount and devalue the quote unquote big things. So when I see a client say like, oh, this is just like a small win, it's not a big deal, there's a very good chance that when that client experiences a win that is actually a big deal, they will still have the same feelings of like, this isn't big enough, this isn't a big deal. It's very rare that we are able to calibrate and suddenly be able to see our big wins in their greatness when we can't even see our small wins. So what my client might experience is like, my wins are too small. I need bigger wins so that they actually count and so that I can actually feel more confident. But in reality, usually what needs to happen is no, we need to work on seeing. Because if you're having troubles seeing these small wins and you don't see them as valid or big enough, you are probably going to overlay a similar psychological pattern onto your bigger wins. Your mind is probably not magically going to be happy with your win just because it's bigger. It's often that we are going to be in a perpetual dissatisfaction or a perpetual inability to see our own wins. So a really powerful way for you to get better at the second step, seeing your wins, is to notice where you're devaluing your successes and notice where you're telling yourself that it doesn't count or it wasn't enough or it was just easier that time. I guarantee you that if you can get better at not devaluing the quote unquote smaller wins, you will also get better at being able to take in the bigger wins. And this leads me to the third S. This is so important. Actually, I think this is the most important thing of the entire episode. And if you only take this away, I think this is all you need to take away from this episode, to be perfectly honest. The third S is sense. So let me quickly review the 3 S's. The first S is slow down. You got to create the space for self-reflection. The second S is see. You have to practice seeing and noticing your successes, your positive qualities, your wins. And part of that includes not devaluing the quote unquote little wins. And the last step is sense. This is so important. I've never heard anyone talk about this. And I literally think that this is one of the most important things about building confidence. Sense means that you are going beyond the intellectual experience of labeling your wins and talking about your wins, and you are feeling the positive feelings, the feelings of pride, the feelings of inner strength, the feelings of accomplishment that come with those wins. There is the intellectual experience that we have thinking about a concept, and then there's the embodied emotional experience that we have when we allow that thought or that concept to wash over us and to impact the way that we are feeling at an emotional level. And what I find so often is that as women, this is one of the biggest things that we struggle with. Even if we slow down, even if we name our wins one by one and we learn to see them and we list them out and we talk about them, we still struggle because we can't sense them. We can't feel that inner feeling of like glowing strength and self-confidence that should flow from our awareness of our successes and wins. And I've been thinking about this a lot. Why is this so hard? Why do we do this? And one thing that I have observed is I'm going to make a generalization. It's not true for all men or all women. It's just an observation of what I have personally noticed. But an observation that I have made is that men do not struggle as much to make the leap from intellectually being aware of something they've accomplished to feeling the strength that comes from that accomplishment. I think that often men have a higher tolerance for the feelings of pride and goodness that come with their accomplishments. Whereas with us as women, I think a lot of us cannot tolerate those good feelings. And I know this sounds crazy because why would we not be able to tolerate good feelings, right? Like if we think of not being able to tolerate something, we think about not being able to tolerate unpleasant feelings. But I want you to just bear with me for a moment because I think this is incredibly important. I think as women, it can feel wildly uncomfortable for us to be in emotional contact with our own excellence, our own goodness, our own strength, our own wins, our own accomplishments. It can feel uncomfortable to feel the goodness. That goodness can feel so unfamiliar to us. It can feel scary to us. It can feel like it doesn't belong to us. So while we might be able to label our wins and successes at an intellectual level, I believe that we mentally block and push out some of the feelings of pride and strength and accomplishment that we would expect to come from having achieved something. And I think that this is partly because of conditioning and socialization. I think we don't see a lot of women being in the emotional experience of owning their strengths and owning how incredible they are. And a lot of times when women do that, they get finger pointed at and people get really triggered by it. And so I think that we become scared of that. And we learn that the right way to be as a woman is like, okay, we can have an intellectual awareness of our strengths, but like we're not allowed to feel good and amazing about it. Like that's just taking it one step too far. How dare we do that? And I think the other reason that this happens is I think if we haven't built a strong self-esteem, I think it's really hard for us to feel our own goodness because that goodness feels inconsistent with how we understand ourselves to be. If at a deep level, I don't have a strong self-esteem and I think I'm kind of bad and kind of a loser and I just don't see myself as solid and capable, then if I have feelings that point to me being solid and awesome and capable, those are going to feel really foreign and those are going to feel like they don't belong in my psyche. They're not a part of who I am. It's going to be really hard for me to feel that. So while I might intellectually know that I've achieved all of these accolades and all of these milestones and all of these huge, amazing things, If deep down inside, I just don't see myself as a strong, accomplished, capable person, I'm going to struggle to go beyond the intellectual and into the feelings. Now, luckily, even though I know that this all sounds difficult, luckily, this is something that we can practice and cultivate. And it does usually take time. And often I find that it does take having someone outside of us to help us make space for a new perspective and a new way of seeing ourselves. Because often it is so foreign and unfamiliar to us to slow down, to see our strengths, and to sense the goodness and to feel the pride deep in our bones that we can't just do that from scratch. We can't just do that on our own. It's too different. It's too unknown. It's too scary. But if we can find someone who can reflect those things to us and who can be with us in the process of trying to expand our internal capacity to see and sense our wins and goodness, we can start to stretch our own capacity in that process. This is why so often, if a client shares a win with me, this happens all the time. They share a win and sometimes they devalue it, which for me is a massive clue that they need help on the C part of the equation. They need help seeing their wins. But even when my clients don't devalue their wins, even when they say like, I achieved this win and this is a really big win, sometimes then they quickly move on to the next thing or they try to quickly get the spotlight off of them. And for me, this makes a lot of sense, right? Because if we don't stay with the win, then we don't have to feel it and sense it. If we just name it and quickly move on to the next thing, then we don't have to go to that uncomfortable, scary place of actually feeling strong, actually being in an experience of liking ourselves and enjoying ourselves. As women, I just think we are terrified to do this, which is why then as soon as we name our wins, we want to quickly move on to the next topic. And one of the things that I love to do is to slow down and to force women to stay just a little bit longer in the success, a little bit longer in the win. And I often am trying to tap more deeply into the feelings that I am feeling around the wins that they're sharing with me so that I can make sure that I'm bringing those feelings to the surface so that I can model to them that there is more here than just naming the win and then jumping to the next thing before we even have a chance to feel it. Here we have an opportunity to deepen our self-love, to deepen our adoration for ourselves, and to create just a little more space within us psychologically to experience ourselves as incredible. I love to be able to slow down and create the space for women to do that. And I want to do that for you right here, right now. I want you to slow down. And I want you to pick one thing, anything that comes to mind. Pick the first thing that comes to mind that represents a win, a positive piece of feedback. And I want you to stay with it. I want you to try to just let it stay for a minute. I want you to slow down. I don't want you to just jump to the next thing. And I want you to ask yourself, if a friend who I love and adore shared that success with me, what would I feel in my body? If a friend told me that she just got a promotion, if a friend told me that she finally spoke up in this big meeting that she had been intimidated by for months on end, how would I feel? And figure out what the feeling is. Maybe you'd feel a lightness, a joy, a sense of adoration, and tune into the physical feeling. Like, what is that like in your body? Where do you feel it? What are the sensations? And then I want you to think about, like, can I offer those sensations and those feelings to me? Can I take that embodied emotional experience that I have when I hear about another woman having a big win? And can I experience it for myself? And I think a lot of times as women, we need to remind ourselves it is safe to experience that for myself. It is safe to experience my own goodness. It is safe to feel good inside about myself. It is safe to do that even if it feels unfamiliar. It is safe to do that even if I'm imperfect and even if I'm a messy human. It is still good and safe and okay to slow down and feel how amazing I am. When we are able to cultivate our ability to truly sense and truly get into the emotional experience that comes from being with our positive traits, our successes, our wins, our good qualities, that is when our confidence starts to grow in a sustainable way. And it happens through practice, and practicing it can feel scary and unfamiliar. I know sometimes my clients feel like I'm really pushing them to constantly come up with something good that they do or talk about themselves, maybe a little bit more than feels comfortable. But in that stretching, in that discomfort, we have the opportunity for growth and change. If we keep staying in our comfort zone and doing things the old familiar way, we're going to stay in the old familiar patterns. So in summary, success rejection is when your mind can't mentally hold your successes. And no matter how much you achieve or accomplish, it's as if your mind chews it up and spits it out. And if you want to build lasting confidence, it's really important to unwind patterns of success rejection. The way I love to do that is through what I call the 3 S's: slow down, see, and sense. Slow down and create space for self-reflection. In that space, do your best to see your wins. Don't devalue them. Don't tell yourself that they're not good enough. And finally, sense. Try to feel at an emotional level the joy, the pride, the lightness, the happiness, the ecstasy that you would feel if a beloved friend or your daughter or someone you just care about so deeply told you that they accomplished that win. Try to feel that for yourself, even if only in small amounts. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. This one turned out a little bit longer than I expected, but if you've made it here, I so appreciate you. Thank you for being here. And don't forget to grab my free training, the Unstoppable Voice Training, 3 simple steps to developing a confident, compelling voice in the room. If this episode fired you up and you want to stay fired up and you want to keep firing yourself up, I think that you are going to love this training, because a big intention that I had in creating it was to get you to push yourself outside of your comfort zone, push yourself to see yourself as more capable than you might think you are, and push yourself to show up and speak like a leader. To grab this free training, just click the link in the show notes or head to jessguzikcoaching.com/free training. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll catch you in next week's episode. Bye.